All right, guys, thank you so much for coming on to my channel. It's Sarah, and today I have a really special guest for you guys, Light Watkins. We were just chatting before I turned the camera on. His book and meditation came to me at an extremely stressful time in my life. We had this huge flood. We had to move out. Like, my whole house was kind of devastated. And I happened to listen to Light on a podcast and got his book and started meditating, and it dramatically changed my life. I've meditated every single day since then for the last 2 years. Like, that's how much it helped me. So I'm excited to have Light on.
Wow. You never missed a day, huh?
Nope. I still have not missed a day yet. I've had a day where I'm like, oh gosh, it's like 10 o'clock at night. I don't care. I still have to do it. You know, that afternoon meditation, that's happened a couple of times, but other than that, I've been doing it every day, twice a day. So.
You know what's interesting about that is if you don't have a practice that you enjoy, if someone were to stop you on the street and say, hey, I'll give you $10,000 to never meditate again. You know, a lot of people, I think probably even most people would take that $10,000. But if you have a practice that you enjoy and someone were to stop you and say, hey, I'll give you $10 million if you never meditate again, I don't know if a lot of people would take that money, because you see the value of your daily practice. So I'm happy to hear you say that.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think I would take that money because it's so valuable to me. And who knows, I might be able to make $10 million if I keep meditating.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it becomes priceless. It's literally priceless. But you have to have the experience first in order to understand the value of it. A lot of people don't understand the value of it, so they don't bother, doing it every day.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are really confused about what meditation is. You know, when I first heard you speak on a podcast a couple years ago, that sparked my interest in getting your book and starting. One of the things that you really explained well was, like, meditation is not running. Meditation is not knitting. Meditation is, we have all these kind of myths around what is meditation. And I was like, wait a second. So that's not, that was such a good explanation that you gave about what meditation really is.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have this idea that if I do this activity that allows me to kind of be in the moment and not think too much about, the past or the future, then that can be my meditation, because I enjoy doing that. But really what's happening is they're letting themselves off the hook. The reason why they're not sitting in silence is because it probably feels unbearable to them. And when you understand the differences in sitting in silence and the value of that versus whatever the meditative activity is, it's two completely different things. It's kind of like me saying, oh yeah, I went to the gym today. Oh really? What did you do in the gym? Oh, I just sat there and meditated and imagined myself lifting weights. Nobody who goes to the gym is going to think that that's the same thing, right?
Right.
And it's the same with meditation. If lifting weights is your meditation, it's not the same thing if you sit there and meditate. It's a qualitative difference in what's happening inside as well as what's happening in your life as a result of your meditation. So that's something we can get into later if you wanted to, but it's definitely not the same thing.
Yeah, and I love how you kind of explain meditation and what you talk about in your book, which you guys, I'll put a link below this video for his book, which is what got me started meditating, period. Just all the different types of meditation that you tried before kind of finding one that works for you. And I think that there's so many people out there right now, which is why I wanted to have you on, that are really interested in meditating, yet sitting there quietly is so uncomfortable. So talk about that a little bit for me, if you will. Like, why are people having such a hard time sitting quietly, do you think, and meditating?
Well, my intention in the early days, back in the 90s, when I first started dabbling in meditation, was just to see what it was all about. I wasn't really looking to go from technique to technique. It's just that I never really found anything that I felt was easy for me to do or accessible for someone like me, which I consider myself to be a very regular person. You know, I like sports, I like relationships, I like the idea of family and, you know, and community and all of those things. And what I realized many, many years later when I met my teacher was that there are two broad categories of meditation. One would be considered a regular person style of meditation, and one would be considered a monastic style of meditation. And what we normally think about when we think about meditation are the monastic traditions, where you sit with your legs crossed, where you have your, you know, your fingers together like that in the mudra. You sit with your back straight and your chin up, and you're focused on some very specific thing. And the regular person's meditation, the non-monastic approach, is it actually is the exact opposite of all of those things. You can sit comfortably on a couch like you're about to watch Netflix, and you don't have to focus in any sort of concentrated way. You can just take a very soft approach to your mind, and as a result, you put yourself in an optimal position for your mind to kind of settle into a very quiet state. And so when I had that settling experience for the very first time, some people call it transcending. It was like I was on drugs or something. It was amazing. And after all those years of trying different monastic traditions, I just felt like I was home, and that it became something that I look forward to doing every day. And then I realized that connection, that meditation, in order for it to become a daily practice, you can't rely on discipline, because no regular person has that much discipline, right? Unless you live completely alone, you don't have a job, you have no obligations, you have nothing else to do, then maybe you have that level of discipline to kind of white knuckle your way into a monastic tradition. But when you practice the regular people styles of meditation, you don't even need discipline because it feels good. And meditation kind of it naturally and organically kind of moves into the category of things that you look forward to doing already, like playing with puppies and going to brunch and, you know, those kinds of things, vacations.
Yeah, that was the thing that I was so shocked about when I read your book and I tried the technique in the book. That, you know, I'm a yoga teacher. I know you taught yoga for a while there before you became a meditation teacher. But I think in yoga, we're like, oh, meditate. And then they even taught me in my teacher training how to meditate. You have to sit up straight and you have to have your ankles crossed. And whenever we would do it, I would kind of feel like I was trying to staple my face to a wall. Like it was just so tedious. And I had tried so many other types of, you know, mindfulness and this type and that type. It just never made me feel relaxed. I felt like I was even more anxious after I tried meditating. And so when I tried your technique in the book, I was like, wait a second, that was just too easy. Like there must be something else hidden here. Cause like that just doesn't even seem like it's, you know, and you find that enjoyment in the practice. And it's like, yeah, you couldn't pay me to stop doing it now because it feels good. It doesn't feel like a chore.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what people don't necessarily understand, because it's like, oh, I have to meditate. And I'm like, no, I get to meditate. And it's, you know, it's like the highlight of my day now.
In fact, it's so easy that people will make it complicated, more complicated than it needs to be, because we're so used to having to work hard in everything that we do that naturally we bring that hard work ethic to meditation. And it ends up making it more clunky than it would be otherwise. So part of my job as a meditation teacher, and I want to make a little distinction here too, because a lot of people who are calling themselves meditation teachers, and I'm not saying they're doing this with ill intent, but what they really are meditation guides. So you may think, well, I went to a meditation teacher and they just kind of guided me through this experience of visualizing this, or, you know, thinking about that. That's not really a teacher. You didn't go to a teacher, you went to a guide. So you may want to give it another shot and go find a teacher who can teach you about the fundamentals of meditating on your own. So for instance, in my teaching practice, I don't guide anybody in anything. I'm like a swimming coach right? If you want to learn how to swim, I'm not going to get in the pool with you and tell you to follow me, follow what I do. That's what a guide does. A teacher can look at you swim, and then they can take you out of the pool, and then they can give you tips and drills to practice so that when you go back in the water again, your swimming ability becomes more and more efficient. They never have to get in the pool with you. So, and I'm using that example because I had that experience with learning how to swim with a swimming coach in my 30s, and which I talk about in my book, Bliss More.
Yes.
But she never got in the pool with me, not one time. But she literally taught me how to swim over, a few weeks. And so that's what a meditation teacher does. I'm not going to be in your living room meditating with you, telling you what to think about. I'm just going to give you the tools and the fundamentals and the principles so that you can do it on your own. And that's what creates this wonderful sense of self-sufficiency, is because you don't need any more apps. You don't need any more guidance. You don't need anything other than yourself, your mind, and your body. And you can drop into the most yummy internal places in an Uber or on an airplane or, in your office chair, anywhere where you can sit and close your eyes. And that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it is, and there's a lot of people that do this type of meditation that have kids. And there's a lady I follow on Instagram who has like 2 little twin babies, and she'll have pictures, of the babies. And she's like, oh, I just meditated. So, and I let my daughter run around the backyard. I know she's kind of fenced in, but many afternoons I've like just let her run around in the yard and done my practice. You don't need like the perfect conditions, the soundproof room, to be in
the altar. You don't
bubble.
need any of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. That's all just extra. Like it doesn't do it. You don't need crystals or
people are surprised. I tell them I've been meditating for 20 years. I've never had a meditation altar, and I love meditation.
Yeah.
Right? You don't need a Zafu or one of these cushions. You don't need any of that stuff. Just you. All you need is you, and you need to understand what you're doing.
Yes. Yeah. Which is the value of having a teacher. And then your book is a great jumping off place for that. One thing I wanted to talk about.
I'm curious about that. I'm going to turn the tables for a second.
Yeah.
So you read the book. You said you started meditating right away. You haven't stopped meditating. Can you talk a little bit about the differences in learning how to meditate from a book versus learning how to meditate with a teacher?
So it's kind of like taking a children's Tylenol versus like a Percocet.
Okay.
I know that's not really, I'm drug free, you guys. I don't take these drugs, but just like in the effect that it has on you, it's like,
Percocet. I'm going to write that down. Hold on.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's a more high powered, substance. I felt really amazing when I did it out of the book, and it just made me kind of hungry for more. It was like, wow, this is really great. I want to learn more. So, working with a teacher one-on-one, taking the course and getting, a more high-powered mantra or settling sound just kind of took things up a notch for me. As far as the way that I was able to adapt to life, that bumping up that, what we talk about in Vedic meditation, the adaptation energy, that was huge. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about adaptation energy a little bit for people who are like, what the heck is that even? Why they might want more adaptation energy.
Right. Yeah. It's really interesting. This is all new to me before I started practicing before I met my Vedic meditation teacher and started practicing on a regular basis. But he made an interesting correlation between your ability to meditate on a consistent basis and the amount of energy that you would have to adapt to change. And he said, the one consistent thing, and especially right now, and what's happening with the pandemic, the one consistent thing is that if you are alive on planet Earth, it doesn't matter what your socioeconomic status is, or what your sex or gender orientation, none of that matters. the one consistent thing that we all experience is change, right? Everything is going to change. Anything you're experiencing right now is going to change at some point. Sometimes it's going to change for the better. Sometimes it's going to change for the worse, but it's going to change. You can bet your money on that. And the only question is that when it changes, to what extent are you going to be able to adapt to those changes? And when you think about, what makes a good day versus a bad day, right? Good days aren't necessarily days where somebody comes and hands you a check for whatever amount of money unexpectedly, right? That doesn't happen really to anybody, but we still can have good days. So what is a good day? A good day is a day where, if you really think about it, it's a day where things may or may not, or maybe they didn't go your way, but you successfully adapted to whatever happened to you, right? And there's a wave of joy that comes from that. It's like when you go to the gym and you have a really good workout. It doesn't mean that the workout was easy. It means that you successfully completed the workout. And there's a feeling that you have leaving the gym that you did not have walking into the gym. Maybe walking into the gym, just like when we walk into our day, we're not so optimistic, we're not so hopeful, we're not so grateful. But then when you leave the gym, you're like, oh my, no one's ever left the gym, a great workout, and go, oh, I wish I didn't go to the gym today, right?
Yes.
You're always thankful. And that's how adapting to change makes you feel, just thankful for all your potential, everything that you have inside. So that's a good day. A bad day could be the exact same day, same things happen, but you couldn't adapt. You overshot the mark. You under-adapted, you maladapted, which meant that you were you had somehow veered off into some sort of distressful reaction. You reacted instead of responded. And that's a bad day, and when we have those kinds of days and we're sitting there sulking and we're angry or we're afraid or we're sad or we're not hopeful, we don't feel good about ourselves. We don't feel good about the possibilities. We can't see a lot of the opportunities that are around us because we're so myopically focused on what's not happening. And so, again, you can have all the money in the world and have a string of bad days, and then you may want to commit suicide. Like, people do that. And that's not a reflection of how much material success they've had. It's a reflection of their ability to adapt to change. So that's what meditation allows us to do, is to be able to adapt. We can become supremely adaptable to change, which means you don't need anything other than yourself. And you can have a string of good days, and and it's you don't even think twice about it. It's just, you just move through your days and you're responding as opposed to reacting.
Yeah, I think, for me, the kicker that made me go and study with like a teacher in person, I wanted to study with you, but you were not coming to Atlanta yet. So I studied with Jill, who was also on my channel not too long ago. But, a lot of my followers, a lot of my subscribers know I have a child with severe autism, and it's very stressful. And I had this situation that would happen with her regularly that would send me into my reptile brain. I mean, I would just completely lose my mind, scream, and I literally couldn't control myself. And it was really just a couple weeks after meditating just with the technique in the book that the same exact situation happened. And I walked in and it was like I was levitating. I had no reaction. I was so peaceful and calm. And I was like, holy crap, this is that meditating I've been doing, Not only was the practice super relaxing, but I started seeing things outside of the practice that were like, wait a minute, when that situation usually comes, I'm usually screaming at the top of my lungs, kind of being a jerk, and I don't want to be that person. And here's the same thing. And I'm like, oh, what, I guess I need to clean this up. I guess I need to manage this, but it wasn't like that red hot anger
Right.
that used to just arise when that situation would happen.
Yeah.
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 And I love how
I've heard so many stories like that. I mean, we could just do a whole podcast just on those stories of people adapting to change. So I'm happy to hear you say that.
Yeah, I remember in your book, you talked about this couple that was out to dinner, and this woman, she had studied with you, and she's like, this meditation's not working. And she and her husband used to get in these horrible fights, and she's like, it's just not working. And then she realized that her husband triggered her, and they got through a whole dinner, and she didn't storm out of the restaurant, right?
Right, which was her pattern. And she didn't even realize that that was her pattern until her husband pointed it out to her, right? That had become so normalized that it was unconscious, her leaving him in the restaurant after an argument. So, and he was shocked. He was apparently shocked that she could just stay there and just move on without without reacting. And that's the thing, you know, that I tell people that I teach. It's like, it's not an intellectual, you don't have the power to decide, oh, I'm going to, you know, adapt to this situation. That's not how it works. You're either adapting in the moment without you realizing it, or you're not adapting and you don't realize it. And so when someone is in their reptile brain, as you called it, that's a binary response, which means your only options are to run or fight. That's it. You don't have the ability to pull the lens back and say, oh, wow, this is just we're just, you know, fighting over this silly little thing. That's not in your repertoire at that moment in time. That's what it means to be in your reptilian brain. And so when you're talking to somebody who's reacting from their reptilian brain, you're not really talking to a human. You're talking to essentially an animal. And that's why people become confrontational and argumentative and irrational. It's because they're being driven by that fear, by the chemicals that are telling their body that you're under attack and you need to run or fight in order to survive the attacker. So meditation has a great, it can go into the body and very effectively dissolve those old stress triggers that may be stored up in the body that are a remnant of past reactions that you've had, even back when you were a kid. And once they leave you, then you find that you just become less and less reactive and more adaptable without even thinking about it. And that is what it means to be adaptable. It goes beyond your intellectual thought, and you're just living your life from the present moment.
Yeah, there's this buzzword going around. I don't know if you've heard it, but everyone's always talking about being triggered, you know, by so many different things. And one of the amazing things that I didn't really realize about meditation until I started doing it was just its ability, like you said, to kind of dissolve those stress triggers that we think it's all about our mind. We think it's the monkey mind. We think it's the mind going crazy. But if you would talk a little bit about how stress kind of like lives in our body, because I think that's so powerful.
Yeah. So the body has the very amazing ability to remember the times when things didn't go the way that we hoped. And especially if those times were life-threatening, right? So in other words, if you were traumatized as a child because you grew up in some war-torn country, or because you lived with an abusive parent, or because you were accident prone and you almost killed yourself in some freak accident, your body will store up the memory of everything related to those experiences, so that the next time you come across some person or situation that reminds your body of what happened to you in the past, it will immediately send you a warning message via chemicals. So everything operates between the brain and the body via chemicals, biochemicals, hormones. And those chemicals associated with the stress, the past stress, or the post-trauma, PTSD, those will tell you that whatever you were doing a moment ago is no longer a priority. What's important now is running away from this situation or fighting the situation. And it's not necessarily a physical manifestation. It could be emotional. Like I said, it could be you becoming argumentative, or you becoming paralyzed, or you becoming disagreeable in some very intense way. Those are the physical and emotional manifestations of being triggered, the stress triggers. being charged up, and when you're in the stress trigger state, you're essentially in the stress reaction. And so, we think we're in control and we can think about whatever we have free will. You don't have any will at all. Your stress triggers are calling all the shots.
Yep.
Your stress triggers, because the average, 30-year-old has a couple of 100,000 stress triggers, mostly from childhood. So your stress triggers are dictating how you communicate to your partner, to your kids, to your parents, how enthusiastic you are about your job, how well you sleep at night, how protected you are against infectious diseases and viruses. Your stress triggers are dictating all of that. And if they're left unchecked in the body, then the body starts to develop the physical manifestation of long-term stress, which is where we start to see things like heart disease, diabetes, respiratory problems, autoimmune disorders. Those kinds of things start to show up. In other words, your body has gone into the stress reaction one too many times. And so whenever that happens, it locks it into place, because the body has an algorithm and it's going to do what's most efficient. It's a form, just like all other forms. In engineering, they say form adapts to function. So just like all other forms, it will eventually adapt to its function. And if the function of the body has been running away from things and fighting things because of all these memories that have been left unchecked, then the body will start to create these little imbalances and quirks and things that the doctors have no explanations for. And then if it continues, then we start to see mental health issues, because the mind and body, of course, are connected. People start to say, oh, I'm depressed or I'm anxious and these kinds of things. But what they're really saying is that I have a depressed body. I have an anxious body. In other words, my body has been so worn down that it no longer functions like it did in its factory setting. And so that's where practices like meditation can be very, very useful. If you have some sort of long-term health challenges, it's not that meditation is a cure-all or a silver bullet for these things, but what meditation can do is, it's kind of like it's if you're in the game of dominoes, the key domino is the one that initiates the sequence of all the other dominoes falling. So meditation is kind of like the key domino for good health. It gives you a level of clarity and awareness about what's going on in your body, so that you can then take progressive action to repair whatever can be repaired and bring things back into balance, if they can be brought back into balance. So without that level of clarity and perception, because everybody's body is talking to them all the time, saying, oh, we need more water, we need more vegetables, we need more love, we need more isolation, we need more nature. But when we can't hear the signals, because there's so much noise and so many stress triggers also shouting at us, telling us to run away from this, fight that, then it just seems like a bunch of noise. And so meditation allows us to kind of settle beyond the noise, so that we can hear clearly what the messages inside of the body are telling us. Then we come out of meditation and we go, it'd be a really great idea to go get acupuncture. It'd be a really great idea to leave that job that I don't like because it's causing me too much distress, and to start to do something more in alignment with what I feel like my purpose is. Be a really great idea to end this relationship and get into a relationship like that, or to show up differently in my current relationship, because the way I've been showing up has been working against my best interests. So those kinds of cues and insights can only come from stillness. And if we're not taking the time to be still, we're going to miss all that rich information. And as a result, we're going to have to rely on external suggestions and advice, which almost always aren't suited for us perfectly, right? The best type of advice for us can only be sourced from within.
Yeah, it's amazing the effect that stress really does have on the body. Before we went on record, I was telling Light that yesterday I had this crazy flood we were just hanging out, and all of a sudden I heard water gushing. It was gushing for about 20 minutes, 2 inches of water in the basement, just complete chaos. And I have I have a continuous glucose monitor on my arm. so it tells me my blood sugar all day because I'm just making sure I'm doing the right thing. Well, my blood sugars during that time of stress shot up above, it was like 110. I mean, my blood sugars were, and usually they're hovering in the 70s and 80s. But I mean, I was like in full flight fight, just a mess. And finally, when everybody settled down, I went and did my practice. And by the time I finished my practice, I did the little scan, blood sugar was back down to like 75, but that was my body's response to the stress. It was trying to protect me. It's like, okay, I'm going to give you all this cortisol. But if we're chronically living in a state like that, it's going to wreck our immune system.
It's no good.
Yeah, it's going to cause all those health issues that you were just talking about. But it's like, I'm sitting there yesterday thinking like, what a gift I have that I can literally just go find somewhere quiet. I can go to my car. I don't have to be anywhere special and just practice and get my body back into balance like that quickly. It's absolutely amazing.
And if you live in America, stress is expensive.
Yes.
It's like having this crazy shopping habit. You can only buy Louis Vuitton, everything. Stress will have you in the drugstore, in the pharmacy, buying all these expensive drugs, going to these doctors, and you don't have right health insurance. I mean, it's crazy because there's no end to it. So, the most economically efficient thing you can do for yourself is to pay somebody to teach you how to meditate properly, so you can have this tool that will last you for your whole life, that will help you to minimize your health problems and maximize your health solutions.
I agree, and part of my story is that I had been addicted to sleeping medication for 20 years and started meditating and was off my medication within 3 months. And I've never looked back, it's not fun to have to take a pill just so you can fall asleep. And it's a problem that I feel like a lot of people have, is having to medicate themselves just to get their body calm enough to fall asleep,
Yeah. And you look at the extreme version of that, Michael Jackson, who's on horse tranquilizers to be asleep. That's what anxiety does. When you have that level of anxiety, because anxiety, it all has a snowball effect. So when when it's unchecked, it just keeps building and building and building and building and building and building, you end up having to take these extreme measures, which are extremely unhealthy for your body. And if you don't do anything and it just gets left unchecked, Heath Ledger, that was he wasn't sleeping at all at night. And if you look at these people with these, who end up doing these really harmful things to themselves, or who just end up in really bad health situations, and you ask them, how were you sleeping at night? Nobody was sleeping, right? It's so detrimental to this. You can go longer without food and water than you can go without sleep. Sleep is a necessity for good health and balance. And that's one of the first benefits that people get when they start practicing meditation on a consistent basis, especially the regular person's approach, is that they come back and they report, hey, I started sleeping like a baby at night. I've been on all kinds of sleep medication, and I've been an insomniac for 10 years. And now after a week, I'm not exaggerating, after a week, I'm sleeping, I'm in a blackout sleep for the whole night, and I'm waking up without an alarm feeling refreshed. And it's happened so many thousands of times, I'm not even surprised to hear it anymore. In fact, I tell people, your sleep is going to improve dramatically. It's just a matter of when. If it's going to happen in a few days or a week or a couple of weeks. But if you stay consistent, and I don't know all the intricacies of the science behind why that happens. I kind of know broad strokes, but I'm not a biologist. I'm not a physiologist. I'm not a doctor. I've never been in medical school. I haven't been trained in this stuff. But from my own direct experience, and maybe it's anecdotal, I don't know, but about 80% of the people that I've taught to meditate have reported better sleep, like dramatically better sleep. And so there's something that's happening when you sit there and meditate for 15 or 20 minutes every day that can do wonders for sleep deprivation.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I remember in your book, you talked about the guy who wore glasses during the day. He was a complete, like, he never slept. He was a complete insomniac.
He was a vampire. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a big sleeper now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about all this stuff, you know, we've got this whole kind of pandemic thing going on, and the things that everyone is saying is, you know, eat right, get your sleep, you know, get your sleep. Your sleep is going to help you get through this. And then everyone's saying to meditate also. But I think we take it for granted. And for me, when I'm stressed out, the first thing that gets affected is my sleep, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then your appetite, you don't feel like eating anything. And if the stuff you do want to eat is like crackers and French fries and whatnot. So stress is also, it has a domino effect, right? When you get stressed, it compromises your ability to sleep, your immune system gets compromised, your digestive system, your reproduction system, all of the long-term survival functions get minimized. And everything that is important when you're under the influence of stress is, you know, whatever it takes to run away from the bear, which is not healthy over the long term. It's literally like drinking a little vial of toxic, you know, poison whenever you feel that stress, because your body is trying to help you. It thinks you're under attack by some deadly predator. And most of the time, probably 99.9% of the time we feel stress, there's no bear around. There's no snake that's slithered into our room. There's nothing that's going to kill us in the moment. It's just worrying about something that we're uncertain about in the future. That's what it is. And 9 times out of 10, we get to that moment and we realize, oh, there was nothing to worry about.
Yeah, it's, you know, and the longer that I meditate, the more I do see just like my body having a reaction. And I think as a meditator, step back a little bit and say, all right, we need to get your body to calm down a little bit. You know, let's do a practice. Let's take some deep breaths and maybe do a gratitude practice and things like that. But I always just thought it was my mind and I'm just crazy, but there's a very physical manifestation of the stress that, you know, it's just toxic. It's really toxic. Yeah.
And then if you don't ever come out of it, you may think that that's just who you are. But meditation kind of gives you a nice reprieve from that. And you start to see, wait a minute, that's not who I am. This is who I am.
Yeah.
That's some other stuff that I've been kind of coping with. But now I get to see what I really feel like inside. And maybe you even remember when you were a kid, that's what I remember feeling, you know, back in those days. And all this other stuff is like coping mechanisms that my body has developed over the years of just getting beat down by life. And now I'm able to come back into balance. Yeah.
It's amazing. That's what it is. I think so much in our society, there's this whole thing of, you know, plant medicine, and everyone wants to have this amazing spiritual experience and get blown away. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I've had some meditation sessions that have been pretty amazing where I've just felt extra relaxed, but you know, I don't really have this desire to go out and have some crazy experience and need to be in a drum circle and like take plant medicine or anything like that. Cause then it's just like, that, you know, the practice, just being in my room on my bed, quiet, away from the family for 20 minutes is enough. It brings my body back into balance, back into homeostasis. You know, you don't need to have some crazy experience.
Yeah. And look, I have never had a plant medicine journey. I've had the same attitude about it. So I can't speak, you know, from experience, but what I can say is that a lot of people who I know who go on these plant medicine journeys, they don't have a regular meditation practice.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of what we tend to do as a society, you know, plant medicine aside, right? Just as a society, we tend to look for the overnight thing. Give me the vision without me having to actually build the foundation for it so that I can sustain it over the long term, right? I'm just going to do it for the weekend, give it to me, then I'm going to go back to my regular life. I'm going to try to implement the things that I saw in the vision. Maybe I can, maybe probably I won't. So then I have to go back and do another journey a month later, you know, and my whole thing is just meditate every day for 15, 20 minutes. And then over time, the vision you'll look up one day in your life and you'll look around and you go, oh my God, I'm living the vision. It was never a conscious thing that you had to put into place over whatever sort of unsustainable lifestyle behaviors you weren't able to get beyond because you never really did anything on a regular enough basis from the inside out that was going to result in new and improved lifestyle behaviors. And that's what meditation does. I tell people, don't worry about you don't have to stop eating meat. You don't have to stop drinking wine. You know, you can still work at that dead end job. It doesn't matter. Just start meditating today. Do it like this, X, Y, and Z, and meditate every day. And over time, the idea to make those changes that are going to be more sustainable and healthy for you are going to it's like inception. They're going to come from within you. Yeah. And that's just going to be the best idea you can come up with. Like, look, this is the idea. It's time for me to leave this career that I loved it at one point, but now I don't look forward to it. I'm crying going to work every day, right? Now it's time to leave that career. And it's your idea and it came from within you, and you realize that you are the vision. You're the walking vision. And the more you empower plant medicine or some shaman or some other person to be the giver of the vision, then you're always going to be dependent upon that thing or that substance or that whatever to tell you what to do next. And really the reality is you already know what to do next. You are the shaman, you are the teacher, you are the guru, right? Yeah. And so once you learn how to access that part of yourself, then it creates this self-sufficiency where you have a level of security and trust in your inner guidance that you've never had before. And you literally can't go wrong. You can see the bright side in any situation you find yourself in, which gives you great access to all the opportunities, even in times like this of great uncertainty, right? You see that there's purpose in this, and there are things that I can learn from this. And that's where your mindset just kind of lives. And every now and again, you might get yanked to fear or worry or whatever, but then your default state is everything is going to be okay. Instead of your default state being, oh my God, I'm worried. And then every now and again, when you do the plant thing or the meditation class, it's like, oh, everything's going to be okay. You go back to your car. Oh my God, I'm worried again. You know, you don't want that to be your default state because that creates a physical experience, a nervous system of stress, which doesn't end well for anybody.
Yeah. And I mean, as someone who did yoga and taught yoga and still does for many years, I would I'd feel better when I was taking a yoga class. Like I would feel nice and relaxed, but as soon as I would get to the parking lot, somebody cuts me off in traffic and I lose my mind, you know? So exactly. Like it didn't have that stabilization effect that meditation does. You know, I would be the stressed out yoga teacher on the way to teach a class, like cursing at people because they were driving, because they didn't know how to drive, you know? So it's just funny how this practice it stabilizes, you know, you all of a sudden you drive to work and you realize you didn't scream anybody and everyone's not that bad of a driver. Maybe they are, but you just don't really care, you know?
Or you did scream at them, but then you were aware of that behavior. Yes. A lot of people are engaged in the stressful behavior and they think they're just, you know, the normal person, right? Everyone else is screwed up. So I like to make that disclaimer because a lot of people may think, well, hold on, my Uncle Jimmy meditates and he's an asshole, you know? What about Uncle Jimmy? And my answer to that is, well, we don't know what Uncle Jimmy would have been like had he not been meditating at all. Maybe Uncle Jimmy would have been a mass shooter. Maybe Uncle Jimmy would have turned into a serial killer. Maybe Uncle Jimmy would have been manic depressive, right? So now he's just a little bit of an asshole. And that's an improvement on where he would have been had he not been meditating. So you can never really look at somebody else and say, that's what meditation is going to do for me, because that person has their own history, their own experience, their own karma, and all these other things that need to get factored into the equation. The only person you can ever compare yourself is to what you would be like without meditating, or how you were last week or last month or last year under the influence of meditation.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, the thing for me is my husband has lived with me for 15 years and he's always been skeptical of me because I'm the difficult one in the relationship.
You're the bliss bunny. Yeah.
He's the laid back one. I'm the like,
Mhm.
I tend to freak out about stuff more than he does. And he was like, yeah, I don't care anything about trying yoga ever because you're so crazy. But after I had meditated for a full year, he was like, okay, you're onto something. I'm going to go. And so he got to study with you about a year ago, which was really cool. But I always tell people that story, you know, my husband's the most skeptical, down to earth, you know, meat and potatoes kind of guy. And for him to go and actually take a meditation course was like a really big deal, you know. He still talks about.
He also had some religious reservations as well, right? Can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Oh no, he's not religious at all. No.
Oh, I thought
No,
he was like concerned that it was like religious or something, or he was like.
Oh yeah, he did. He thought it was like he was going to have to convert to a religion and I think a lot of people think that they're like, he's not religious, but I think a lot of people think it's either going to conflict with their religion or they're going to have to adopt a set of religious practices in order to meditate. And he he definitely thought he was going to have to like start burning, you know, sandalwood.
Sage.
Yeah.
Let me clear the room. Hold on 1 second.
Oh my God. He's seen me do that so many times. He's like, I don't think it worked.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So what was his experience from learning?
Well, he right away just took to the practice, and I never thought that he would, you know, but he, you know, made time for it. And I don't think he'll mind me telling you this, but he was having panic attacks, which is the other reason why he decided he would learn, because he would be in a meeting. He's in medical sales with a bunch of doctors and break out into a sweat and like literally sweat through his suit because he would just be. And he didn't know what was causing it. He had no idea. He tried a bunch of different stuff and nothing was working. And so within a week of meditating, the panic attacks completely stopped. And that was a year ago. But that was seeing me change, and then having this panic attack thing he couldn't do anything about was what made him learn meditation. And within a week of meditating every day, the panic attacks totally stopped and they haven't come back. And it's been almost a full year now.
See, that's something that some doctor would prescribe some medication. You'd be on some medication with all these crazy side effects, you know, super expensive, taking up all your time, going to make sure you had it filled. And if you forget it, then it's like you're panicking about the fact that you don't have your medication.
Yeah. And he had gone to the doctor and they wanted to give him medication for anxiety and depression. And he was like, hell no, I don't want to take that. I guess I have to learn meditation.
Whatever it takes to get him in the room.
Right. I mean, it's cool to have a partner that meditates for sure, because we give each other the time and space to do it. And we both understand how important the practice really is in the survival of our family and just keeping everything going. So that's also been really
What is
cool.
your daughter's perception of meditation after seeing her mom and dad meditate?
She learned with Jill, and I don't really know if she's meditating or not, but when I'm meditating, she'll sit in the room with me and be completely calm. Like she actually likes to kind of be around me when I'm meditating. And she got a mantra from Jill and learned, so I don't know if she's still doing it or not, but she's definitely interested in it for sure.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's helped the whole family for sure. So, yeah, cool. Well, I guess, it's been awesome to chat with you and so many nuggets in here for everybody. Where can people find you if they want to look for you, connect with you, learn from you, et cetera, et cetera?
I am pretty active on Instagram, at Light Watkins, and lightwatkins.com, between those two sites.
Cool. And I'll make sure to link all of that stuff below, as well as a copy of your book, which I obviously recommend to anybody, especially right now. You guys are at home. Everyone wants to learn how to meditate. Like, you can be meditating in just a few hours. It's the simplest thing in the world. Just read the book. So.
Yeah. And there's also a free 21-day challenge that is a companion to the book. That will take you, if you don't like reading books, I get it. There's some books I don't like to read, but it'll take you through each section of the book over those 21 days so that you don't even realize you're reading the book until the end of the 21 days. You've read the whole book, but you've also done exercises that relate to certain chapters of the book. So it's a very easy read. It's like literally 7 or 8 minutes of reading per day of the 21 days, and then you're done by the end. Did you do the 21-day challenge?
No, but I have some students who actually just tagged me on Facebook that they're doing it right now. So yeah, whenever Light comes through town, I always send all my yoga students to one day I'd love to be an initiator like Light, but here's the other thing about being a meditation teacher. It's a lot. You have to do a lot to become a teacher of Vedic meditation. It's not just like you can go online and take a course. Like there's a lot involved in becoming a teacher. So yeah, until then, I'm just going to keep filling up your Atlanta classes when you're here.
Well,
yeah.
The people of Atlanta, thank you.
Yeah. We need everyone meditating right now. It's gonna help tremendously. So I'm happy to send people your way.
Thank you. You've been a great supporter. Thank you.
Yeah, always.
And you've been a great example of what a daily meditator looks like.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I can't even tell you all the different areas of my life that it's touched. It's just, it's tremendous. So not planning on stopping anytime soon. And yeah, it's just a great practice. So awesome.
Beautiful.
Well, cool. Well, thanks again for chatting. And yeah, it was really amazing.
Thank you.